Well, today on the Practice of the Practice podcast, it's day number 4 of the $1 Million Practice series with Kasey Compton. How you doing today, Kasey?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, this has been awesome. I've been so impressed with just how much information you fit into some very short podcasts. You really lumped them in there, and so much amazing information. People are taking tons of notes. They're talking about it on Facebook and Twitter, and I'm getting some great emails about it. You just, cause a great big splash wherever you go. It's awesome.
Well, as long as it's a good thing, I'm okay with that. We don't
You don't want to cause a big splash when it's a bad
no,
thing.
no.
Yeah, so the first 3 days we covered purpose, planning, process. Those are the first kind of 3 components. And today we're diving into profit, probably one of the most popular ones, because one of the reasons that people go into business is to make money and to maybe have their lifestyle be different than how it was, and also make an impact on the world. So where should we start with profit, the profit phase?
Okay, let me tell you, I think I may have talked about this I did in the first podcast I did with you, but just a recap of it. Whenever I first was in private practice and I thought, you know what, I'm ready for some residual income. I'm ready to start a group. I'm ready to do this. I don't have any money. And so I found out what the reimbursement rates are on the insurances that I wanted to accept. I found out what I was going to pay my clinicians roughly. And I used the math and just said each clinician's probably going to do 20 hours a week. So I'm going to just multiply that up. And for my first year, based on the staff that I had as a group, I think I projected $334,000, and that would be called your top line revenue because that's what's coming in on top. So I took that and had a friend of mine that he's kind of an investor and he likes to spend money. And I was like, hey, I would like about $30,000, and I think I can give you a return on your investment in 3 months safely. And this is where I'm projected to hit. And he was like, you'll never do that. That's no way. Ain't going to happen. So then when we filed taxes for that year, I think I was just a few $1,000s off and hit it almost to the T. But that's just an example of knowing you're going to need just a basic projection of if you want to be $1 million practice, then you need to work backwards. How much are you going to charge? How much are you going to pay your clinicians? How many sessions are they going to average? And then just work backwards. And if you're way off, then we may need to either think of ways to increase your revenue, increase your volume, or make some adjustments along the way.
Yeah, I love that you start with just like the basic math of it. So few people, it's amazing when I say, well, how many sessions a week do you need to do to hit your numbers? I don't know. I'm at 15. Where should I be?
Yeah.
You tell me, how much do you want to make?
I know.
So just starting with that in regards to profit is a great place to start. Where do people go after they figure that out?
Okay. So I'm working on this ebook, and I've got a few formulas in there that I think people that are very simple that I think people will find helpful. And just one, finding out what your top line revenue is, of course. One of the things I do in my practice is I figure out what an average, what my gross per clinician is per year. So I know that if I have 20 clinicians and they're grossing the company, this isn't true, I'm just making up a number, I can multiply quickly. Let's say they gross the company $40,000 in a year. That's $800,000. I'm almost already at my $1 million. So, there's knowing how much your clinicians are profiting, both gross and net for you, is a good thing. And I do have those percentages kind of broken down on how to get to those numbers. Looking at how to determine your annual gross profit is important. Like you said, just how many sessions. We incorporate this in our interview process because I feel like people have a certain expectation when they come in, and I feel personally responsible if they start working here and they're not making enough money to pay their bills, and I get really anxious. And so I sit down with them in the beginning and say, how much do you need to make a year? How many hours do you want to work a week? And just make sure that it matches. And it's sort of the same concept with the profits piece of this. Let me see. There was one other thing here that I thought was really important. Okay. Now, most of the people, if you've been in practice for a year at least, you're probably going to have some numbers already, whether you use QuickBooks or some other type of system. So running those reports, you can run a profit and loss statement, and you can go in there and do a percentage in the reporting aspect of the report, and it will tell you what percentage you spent on each of your categories that you've allotted. And I think that is huge to go in and evaluate what percentage are you spending on rent, what percentage are you spending on overhead costs that, it's kind of good to know your fixed costs, the ones that you can't really change, like your rent and different things like that. And then how much are you spending on other things like cleaning? If you're spending 5% of your gross top line revenue on cleaning, that's a problem. You need to make some adjustments. So one of the biggest things I think with profit is teaching people how to change their mindset into a percentage based thinking model rather than a dollar amount thinking model, because automatically when you convert everything to percentages, your ability to scale just becomes so simple. You don't have to change your budget every 2 months as your staff grows. You say, based on my budget, I'm going to spend 3% of top line revenue for rent across the board on all of my offices. And then, as your business grows, your top line revenue is going to grow. And so that budget is ultimately going to grow as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. So then a practical example would be, instead of saying $200 a month, we're going to put into advertising, Facebook, pay-per-click, whatever. Instead, if we know that we're going to do 5% of top line revenue, then as people are bringing in more money, you're then reinvesting in that marketing, which then gives you the ability to scale and grow and kind of keep that hose open kind of coming in.
Exactly. Yes, because once your company grows, my expenses, it's kind of, it like almost takes my breath whenever I go and look at 2016 to 2017 of, what changed in that year, because you kind of get to this point in private practice that you're right there on the cusp, and you're either going to need to stay small and keep your overhead low, or you're just going to have to push it out and just focus on volume, because there is a spot there where you do have so much more overhead, and then you have to hit certain numbers in order to meet that overhead. So just knowing what that is. I'm a numbers person. I love working with numbers. I like manipulating numbers. So I kind of knew when that was coming in my practice, but I don't think the average person that just doesn't love numbers would be like, hey, I'm getting ready to hit this point where I'm either going to have to hire, 5 more clinicians, or I'm going to have to struggle for a few months.
Yeah. Well, and I think that, so often people don't understand that as your expenses go up, it's usually because your business is growing. And so when I look at my amount that I pay my clinicians, my virtual assistants, my, Sam with marketing, all of that, I mean, the amount that I'm paying out just in staff compared to when I had a full-time job, it's like, holy cow, I have so much more money going out than I ever had coming in before. But that's because we're growing. That's because we're serving more people. We need those extra staff to make videos and content that then helps us get more consulting clients, more mastermind clients. But by doing that, it helps us be more competitive in what's a growing market. I mean, private practice consultants, there's so many people that are kind of throwing up a shingle, but if we're going to compete and differentiate ourselves, we need to reinvest in, a lot of those free services, but then we know that it helps us scale so much faster than just like a solo consultant too. Right. So I love that you say that point, that it's, takes your breath away, that still you're like, holy cow. I feel that way every month too when I look at my expenses, but it's still one of those things that, it shows that you're growing. So what are just a couple of the kind of your final points regarding the profit phase?
The profit phase is really, really important. And if nothing else, you get out of that learning how to look at your own numbers and learning how to analyze those and get to a place where you feel confident. I mean, I feel like I'm a pretty conservative business owner in terms of spending. And so I try myself to be very strategic in how I spend money and how to utilize things for multiple purposes. And I hope to be able to teach other people how to do that instead of just going out and buying 25 printers, just for the sake of buying 25 printers. There's other ways that you can scale your business without cutting into your revenue substantially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Well, I mean, you just think about when you're looking at top line revenue, saying what percentage do you put in your own ongoing learning, whether that's going to conferences, having a consultant, being a mastermind group, speeding things up in some way. I mean, what does it mean to get to your $1 million practice a year early? That's a lot of extra money coming in. And why should you spend time dinking around and trying to figure it out yourself when people have done it? Well, if you want to join our mastermind group, you are welcome to apply over at practiceofthepractice.com/apply. And if for some reason it's not a fit, we have lots of other things that we will connect you with, whether that's one-on-one consulting with Kasey or with Allison. I almost combined your names into Callison. If you want to be with Callison, or a different mastermind group, we will work with you to tell you kind of the best use of your time and money. Thanks so much for letting us into your ears and into your brain. Tomorrow, we're going to be covering the final step, and that's people.